John Cola with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. As you guys can see, I bought all the date sugars that you could buy on Amazon.com. Some may be available at a local health food store near you. But in this episode, we're going to go deep and we're going to find out once and for all which one of these is the best date sugar that money can buy. So first up, before we get into the date sugar, I want to encourage you guys to start eating a whole food, plant-based diet. What is that? That means you eat real food that are found in nature. We don't want to eat processed foods and junk foods. A lot of processed foods and ultra-processed foods will add in sugar. And while I am an advocate for date sugar, I am not an advocate for extracted sugar. I actually happen to have one right here. This is actually called organic sugar in the raw. Actually, I bought this at Costco because it was on clearance sale. Guess it didn't sell good enough. But this is an extracted sugar made out of sugar cane. They basically juice the sugar cane, then they dehydrate it or dry it and just get the crystals, which I do not encourage you guys to eat. I encourage you guys to ditch the sugar, get it out of your diet. I know everything that you go buy in the store pretty much has added sugar. And if you look on nutrition facts, there's a little thing that'll say added sugar in every different packaged food item you buy, right? And I would encourage you, if it has added sugar in there, I would encourage you guys not to eat it. I want you guys to eat natural sugars that come from a fruit, vegetable, or other plant food instead, that are in its whole food form, right? When we eat whole food sources of sugar, such as date sugar, which is literally just dates like this that are ground up into a powder, they contain the fiber and nutrition. It's light years ahead of the extracted sugar that can have many negative effects in your body. That's why you want to ditch things like soda and things like cookies and cupcakes, and instead you want to make them yourself, and you could substitute the date sugar for the standard extracted sugar in baked goods. Otherwise, if you're just blending up smoothies and whatnot, there's really no need to use the date sugar. If you're blending it up, you could just go ahead and use whole dates. So the first part of this episode, that will be rather short, is that I really want to share with you guys why you should start eating date sugar and ditch the regular sugar as well as other sweeteners. So of course, if you guys have watched me before, you guys know that I look at the published science and I'm evidence-based. So we're going to throw up a study right here. And this is a chart basically that came out of the study that was colorized thanks to Dr. Michael Greger at nutritionfacts.org. As you guys can see, this graph shows the estimated antioxidant contribution from sweeteners. So you can see date sugar literally is at the top, and it rules them all for having the most basically antioxidant potential per serving. Of course, after that is blackstrap molasses, then dark molasses, and I don't know if you guys ever tasted molasses, but that stuff tastes like strong, whereas date sugar has a nice flavor. Nonetheless, if we go down the chart more, and this is the reason why I want to show you guys this chart, if we look at brown sugar, maple syrup, light brown, cane sugar, even honey, turbinado sugar, like I just showed you guys actually, it's very low in antioxidants because a lot of those nutrients have been processed out of these sugars and or just don't contain them, right? Sugar granulated white has basically zero antioxidant contribution. We want to eat foods that are high in antioxidants. I mean, besides just the antioxidation and help us anti-age, these antioxidant phytochemicals and properties in the plants can confer many health benefits to us. If you guys want to read this entire study, link down below for that. During my research for all these date sugars or powders, if you want to call them that, I went to every single company's website to see what they had, learn their mission statement that I'll be sharing with you guys, and learn everything I could about these date sugars so that I could share them with you and tell you guys which one is the best one. So on the Pure Date website, they had this graph that we'll throw up here on the screen right now. You know, besides just the antioxidants, which we previously compared, we could compare the potassium content, the magnesium content, the calcium content, the fiber content compared to maple syrup. And I know some people in a raw vegan movement or whole food plant-based movement use a lot of maple syrup. You know, instead I would encourage them to use whole dates or even the date sugar that kick more butt and have more potassium, magnesium, and fiber. Of course, the maple syrup does have some significant amount of calcium, a little bit more than date sugar, But once again, comparing it to honey and cane sugar, it's really, really low. And the other thing that's very important to me is look at the fiber chart right here, right? The fiber chart is so critical. Fiber is critical for our health, not only the soluble but insoluble fiber. They can feed our microbiome, help keep us regular, and have many potential health benefits. And if you guys look at cane sugar, honey, or maple syrup, they're basically foods that are lacking in fiber, whereas the date sugar does contain fiber. It's probably the only sweetener that I could think of that contains fiber that is in an easy to use powder form that can be substituted in baked products. In a recent video, I actually made peanut butter cups and actually used date sugar instead of the sugar. Link down below to that video. And so yeah, I really encourage you guys to get some date sugar in you. As you guys can see, not only in antioxidants, but also potassium, magnesium, and fiber and calcium, it is quite high in. So the next chart we're gonna throw up there on the screen is actually from the Date Lady. She had this chart on their site, and they share their comparison of their date syrup, date paste, date sugar against honey and maple syrup. So you could clearly see on the potassium, you know, the date sugar had almost the most potassium. Their date syrup had a little bit more. And of course, the calcium is rather high on the date sugar as well. Definitely way more than honey, and definitely rules over the other date products. The magnesium was the highest on the list as well. It said that people have a magnesium deficiency, and that magnesium may be a mineral that can help you sleep better. Also, of course, there's fiber in the date sugar as well that's not in honey and not maple syrup. But the most important part of this chart I want to share with you guys is the ORAC value. It's a line on the bottom. So you guys can see the ORAC value of date syrup is 6,500. The ORAC value of the Date Lady paste is 5,600. But the date sugar is 22,300. That is like 3 to 4 times higher than any of the other sweeteners on this page. And of course, the honey is only 300 to 1,600, and the maple syrup is only 590. ORAC value basically has to do with antioxidants in like test tube studies. So we should not put a lot of credibility to that, but definitely it is an impressive ORAC value, rivaling maybe even some of the berries and other fruits out there for sure. So hopefully after comparing some of the other different kind of sugar products that can be used, you're like, wow, John, that date sugar is really high in different minerals, antioxidants, and nutrients, and I want to get some in me, so which one do I purchase? And this is the exact conundrum that I had. So when I first learned about date sugar, it was actually at a trade show, link down below to that, and I met this company who was making date sugar, and I had never seen this before in my life. I had been aware about date paste and also just whole dates, and that's how I've eaten them for many, many years. And then I learned about the date sugar. I always cover the best products at the Expo West, which is the trade show for the health food industry, where you'll learn about things that you're not gonna see anywhere else. I'll put a couple of my past videos at the Expo West trade show so that you guys could learn about some of the coolest products at that show. So nonetheless, I got some of their product and I used it, and you know, it tasted pretty good. And then I finally ran out, then I needed to go and buy some. And unfortunately, most grocery stores or other places don't sell the date sugar. So I'm glad for places like Amazon that allows many different sellers to sell their date sugar. So then I went on Amazon, and for the first couple times, my criteria for buying a date sugar was, hey, it's gotta be organic, and I want the lowest cost per pound. So then I basically defaulted to getting the Yupik brand, and in addition, I've also had good luck with the Terrasol brand in the past. In addition, I have gone to like, Marshall's or something, and sometimes they have a food section, and they have had date sugar in there on random occasions for pretty cheap, so I've bought those. So I've always been driven by like, hey, as long as it's a cheap price, then that means it's the best, right? But then I was buying it on the last time I was gonna buy it, which was about a week ago. I was like, okay, John, you're gonna buy date sugar because it's organic and it's the lowest price. But does that really mean it's the best? It's like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. Was he really the best for Belle? I don't think so. So So then I'm like, well, what is the best? So then I like started searching. I use Google as my best friend. I searched what is the best date sugar, figuring somebody would have a review on a webpage or somebody would have made a video like this to like go over what's the best date sugar, and nobody had anything like this. So then I'm just that amount of crazy, and I'm like, well, what the heck? I'm gonna buy all the date sugars on Amazon so that I could test them, and then I could share with you what is the best date sugar. And not only for you, but more importantly, I want to know what is the best date sugar for me so that I can continue to buy and support that brand, because there are so many. The prices range, and as you guys can see on every package, I basically put the price it costs me on Amazon, the price per ounce, so that's the price divided by how many ounces it weighs, and then I share if it's organic or non-organic, right? So you can see them all lined up here with all the prices. I have a master table here that I printed out, but I will put a link down below to this table if you guys want to download this table, all my research, as well as some of the data that I'll be collecting in this very video, so you could review it to see which one is your favorite. And of course, if you guys want to buy any of these products, right, I'll put a link down below to my Amazon shop, and I would appreciate if you guys use my Amazon shop. Amazon shares with me like 2% or something ridiculous, but hey, they're gonna pay me a little bit, at least reward me for my work of buying all these, which cost almost $200 in date sugar right here, and it's gonna definitely take me some time to eat it all. But I really want to do this so that I could know, and more importantly, I really want to educate you guys, everybody watching, about date sugar and getting rid of the sugar and how you could use date sugar in the place of regular sugar, which I do not advocate for. That being said, well, regular sugar is basically juice that has been dehydrated and will dissolve in liquids. None of these date sugars will dissolve in liquids. So, you know, get that straight. If you guys want to add date sugar to your coffee or something, then you're going to want to blend it up a little bit and froth it up. And it won't really super dissolve. But of course, if you're using it in baked goods like cookies and candies and things that I don't make myself, you guys could use date sugar in the place of sugar. It actually has an amazing sweetness. And, you know, I will be taste testing these and share with you guys my opinions on the taste as well. Anyways, if we want to rate these in terms of the cost, I'm going to say, like, on the chart, I have whole dates. Like, the cheapest place I found them are to buy them from Costco. And it's about $8.99 or $9.99 for the Deglet Nor pitted variety. So as the baseline, I did cost per ounce of whole dates is 22 cents an ounce if you bought the whole dates. So it's always best to use whole dates instead of date sugar, because date sugar had to be further processed than the whole dates that basically look like this. So how do they get date sugar? Well, there's a number of methods. The easiest way is they basically gotta super dry the dates. So whether that happens on the tree, out in nature, and some companies actually use upcycled dates that are too dry to sell. Once they're really dry, then they can be ground up with a grinder and then turned into the powder. Of course, I've read other studies when I was researching this episode. They also do spray drying of some date sugars, as well as CO2 extraction. But the primary method that is used is that the dates are dehydrated one way or another, sometimes with heat. And in most cases, based on my research, they get hotter than what a raw foodist would like. So if you eat any date sugar, you could probably consider yourself not a raw foodist if you want to be 100% raw. That being said, my definition of raw is if I eat 75% or more. And of course, I would not count date sugar. That being said, always whole dates are always best. The cheapest was the Royal Palm at 47 cents an ounce, non-organic. Also on my table, I share where the dates were grown. That may be important for some of you guys. Some of you guys want to get dates grown in the USA or in California, whereas some of you guys might not care if it's imported. Many companies will claim where their dates come from. Some companies do not, and I would encourage companies that do not claim where their dates are from to start to share where their dates are from. I would also encourage companies that make date sugars is to share with people the exact process that the dates go through. Like, what is the temperature that the dates are dried at? How are they ground up? How are the pits sifted out? Or if pits kind of make it into the powder, which actually adds more fiber. I think transparency is really critical in this day and age, and I wish there was a little bit more information and data I could share with you. I also shared the cultivar of the date that was used, if it's known. There are 3 main cultivars, and it looks like most of these date sugars use the Deglet Noor variety of dates. One company uses a Sukari variety of dates, and one company uses the Kencini variety of dates. So if you think that the best date sugar is the cheapest one, then you definitely want to go with this. It's 47 cents per ounce when I bought it, non-organic. That being said, if you guys want to get the cheapest organic one, this is the one I have bought in the past. I met the Yupik company at a trade show in Anaheim, California. They seem like fine people. This is the second cheapest at 57 cents per ounce, and it is organic. It's from Tunisia, whereas the Royal Palm dates are from the USA. I would suspect that they are from California. Next up, we have the Heaven and Earth. This is the next cheapest at 67 cents an ounce. They are organic, and they're from the United Arab Emirates. Next up, we have the Pure Date, which is right here. This was 75 cents an ounce from Tunisia. We don't know the cultivar. That being said, they do claim that they sun-dry their dates, which could be good for people that are on a raw vegan diet. I have seen studies that show if you heat up the dates too much, the polyphenol and antioxidant content drops. So that's very important to have a lower temperature dehydration. In addition, they claim they use upcycled dates, which would mean, you know, they're kind of like reject dates that they wouldn't sell fresh. Maybe it would be animal feed, but now they could actually turn it into a powder that humans could eat. So, you know, kind of in between, I would really like to know more about what does upcycled dates mean. They also use recycled packaging, which is cool. They're also empowering women and paying them a fair wage. And also the Pure Date company, that's their only product. So that to me, that means maybe it's a little bit higher quality than other companies that sell many different date products, or sell, as in the case of Yupik, sell many different products, or even like Terrasol, they sell so many different products. So speaking of Terrasol, they are the next cheapest date powder. It comes in at 75 cents per ounce. It is organic. I have bought Terrasol products in the past and have had good luck with them. It is organic. And it's from Tunisia, Algeria, or the USA. So they don't name the exact country. I think it depends, like, you know, that time when they're basically bagging new product, where can they get their product from? So they source from all over. Generally, they are Deglet Noor. Now, the interesting thing about the Terrasol is that I also, based on the nutrition facts on the back of the label, I also did calculate the amount of sugar and fiber per 100 grams of date sugar, which is a lot of date sugar to eat. A lot of these were in lower amounts, so they claim, you know, how much fiber and sugar in like 6 grams. So then I had to basically do the math. And on the Terrasol, they claim 0 sugar and 0 fiber based on their small amount of grams. So this may be some kind of rounding error. If they made the number bigger, then maybe they would have a number. So that kind of like makes me like kind of question Terrasol's integrity when they don't have the exact amount. And to make this interesting, that's why I put the whole dates on the chart. Whole dates in 100 grams have 72.5 grams of sugar, and if fiber per 100 grams of whole pitted dates, it has 7.5. So that you could see, you know, who's, you know, claiming a maybe legitimate range of fiber and sugar. To me, that's very important. Like, how honest is the company, or did they just pull their numbers out of some thin air thing, you know? But I want to mention that on the Terrasol. And then next cheapest was the Date Lady, which is on this side. They're a fairly big company, 75 cents per cost per ounce. Now, the other thing I did, I also put the best buy date. So these are the best buy dates on each package of date sugar that I received, that I all ordered on the exact same day. And so Amazon sent them to me, and then they have a best buy date. So best buy dates are like when you should eat the product by. It doesn't mean it expires. It doesn't explode on the best buy date. And it could still actually, in most cases, be good, still good to eat. It's not going to poison you, you know, after the best buy date, right? But nonetheless, what the best buy date tells me is how fast is the stock turning over at Amazon. Optimally, you know, for the freshest product, you want the best buy date the furthest in the future. So, for example, the Date Lady was 12/25, which is like a year and a half away. The worst best buy date was the the today's date, which was 11/24, and then the Chatfields was 12/24, so that's just like literally 5 or 6 months away at this point. And the best buy date was the Worldwide Botanicals and the Let's Date at January 2026, meaning that is the freshest product, or they're setting their best buy date further out than the other companies. Also, the date lady does not declare where the dates are grown or the cultivar of the dates. I have it all listed, and it'll be interesting when I start taste testing these to see if that makes a difference. Next up is the Worldwide Botanicals. I think they make the Ticino brand, and they also import and sell other products. This is 81 cents per ounce, and they do claim that it is sun-dried at a low temperature. So if you're in, they're from California, using Deglet Noor. So if those factors are important to you, then you might want to go with this brand. I really didn't like the small typeface on the packaging. Wasn't as easy to read as some of the other brands. Next up, we have the Cardigo Dates. And this company has been basically and family have been growing dates for over 200 years. They're from Tunisia. This is the Deglet Noor, and it's 81 cents per ounce, and they are organic. The next cheapest was today's date at 83 cents. That's this little small package. This is the brand that I probably would not buy. I mean, they claim that it's organic. It says like we're organic, but we're not certified. To me, that's kind of sketchy. Plus their packaging is just really plain. The price is kind of on the higher end. They don't disclaim where it's grown or the cultivar. So yeah, they're kind of sketchy to me. And of course, they have the nearest expiration date. So I'm going to say they're definitely the loser at the bottom of the list at this point for me. All right, next up is the Just Date. And these are also at 83 cents. Organic, yes. 125 expiration. It's from Tunisia, and they use a unique variety of date I haven't heard before here in the USA called the Kentichai. I do want to mention that the Heaven and Earth brand right next door did also use a unique variety of date called the Sukari, and that may play a role when I do the taste testing because they may taste better or worse than the other brands that are using Deglet Noors predominantly. And of course, some other brands are unknown because maybe they just use whatever dates they have that are too dry and then just powder them up and they don't have to claim it, so that then every time you buy the product, it could change and it could be different. And you could get a different product. I mean, that's especially true with the Terrasol that may have their supplier grow the dates in 3 different countries. So, you know, this product is constantly changing. Whereas some of these other brands, especially like the Pure Date, uses the same exact dates every single time. All right, next up is a big company online. They sell lots of products, and this is Anthony's. They are not organic. They're 87 cents cost per ounce. They're from Tunisia. They use Deglet Noor. They are dehydrated, although there's no fiber claimed on the nutrition facts label, which was a red flag for me. Next up is the Now brand. I did buy this on Amazon at the lowest price on Amazon, which is $14.44. But if you go to your local natural grocers, maybe other places, this may sell for as low as $10. That would bring the cost per ounce down. That being said, based on the price I paid, it's 90 cents per ounce. I generally trust the Now brand for their supplements, actually, myself. That being said, we don't know where these were grown, and we don't know the cultivar. But they do say on their website that these are raw and unprocessed. So if it's important that the package says raw, and I will remind you there are no raw labeling laws, but you could say it's raw, it says raw on the package, so I'm still raw, and you want to hold on to your labels, this is the one to buy. Because it says raw, but we don't really know it. All right, next up is probably my favorite company name, is called Let's Date. And yes, let's date if you're a single woman and want to have kids, because I'm looking for a partner. Nonetheless, Let's Date is organic. It is second to the most expensive at 92 cents an ounce. So it'll be interesting to see if this stuff tastes better than all the other ones, and some of which, like the Royal Palm, is like half the price at this point. It is from the USA, so it's USA grown. The cultivar is unknown. That being said, because it is USA grown, I would likely say the cultivar is Deglet Noor. And the cool thing about Let's Date is that they claim you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you've never tried date sugar before and you're not sure if you're going to like it, hey, buy this one. Yes, it's the most expensive, but if you don't like it, tell them. And they said they'll give you a full refund. So I do kind of like that they're willing to put their money where your mouth is so that you can try the product risk-free. And I hope they are honest and truthful in providing refunds. All right, the last and most expensive, so this is the wiener for the most expensive date powder. It's Chatfield's. This is not organic. This is a major brand. I think this date powder is probably one of the first date powders out on the market because Chatfield basically specializes in all different kinds of alternative sweeteners, actually. So this one is the most expensive at 93 cents an ounce. It also expires December 24th. It's from California. They don't disclose the cultivar, but once again, because it is from California, I'm going to assume it is the Deglet Nors. They also mentioned that it is dehydrated, but the other comment I have is that this is the smallest package. This is like a half a pound, whereas most of these other packages are minimum 12 ounces or 16, or in the case of the Yupik, it's actually a good over 2 pounds because it's 1 kilo, which is 35.3 ounces. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention, if you guys live in Canada, I dated a Canadian girl once, you guys want to probably go with the Yupik because that one you could order directly from Yupik in Canada and get good Canadian pricing on that, since I know a lot of you Canadians are pretty frugal from my observations, all right? All right, so that is my whole chart. And now we're going to get into some of the testing that I'm going to do today, all right? So, I read a lot of Amazon reviews. I looked up a lot of published studies on date powder, date sugar, how they can positively impact your health. Pretty much similar to the benefits of eating the whole dates. That being said, the date powders, as I mentioned, are dried more and then ground up. So then you're basically going to oxidize some of the nutrients more than eating a whole date. So I would say, if all possible, eat whole dates instead of buying a date syrup, which is basically dates that have been soaked and then blended up so you can make your own date syrup at home. That being said, making date sugar is a bit more complex because you're going to have to dry the dates to a sufficient level so that they will turn into a literally powder or dust, and then sift them out. I may have an upcoming video where I discuss this and share how I'm turning my dates into the highest quality date powder money can't buy, because I am dehydrating them under vacuum in the freeze dryer when they're frozen, and then I'm grinding them up without oxygen so that they will not oxidize. Nonetheless, that's a different video for a different day. But nonetheless, some of the reviews on Amazon said that, hey, the bag was only a half full, you cheated me, you didn't give me all the ounces that you claim. So the first test I'm going to do is very simple. We're going to go ahead and get out the scale, and we're going to go ahead and weigh every bag of date powder to make sure that what they claim on the label is actually how much weight is in the bag. Now, the other thing I want to mention that I should have mentioned earlier is that I do have a table of contents in my videos. So I'll put a table of contents as pinned as a first comment, as well as in the description. So if you guys just want to jump to the end to find out what is the best, you guys could clearly do that to see when I'm declaring the winner after all these tests, because this video ain't going to be short, because I like to share it with you guys like it is. We're going to try to condense this part where I'm just going to go ahead and weigh it, show it to you guys, call it out, and we're just going to go on to the next one to keep this part of the video shorter. All right, first up, we're going to go ahead and weigh the Royal Palm. They claim it's 16 ounces. As you guys can see, we're at 16.42. Next up, we got the Yupik. They claim 35.3 ounces. We're at 36.22. Next up, we got the Heaven and Earth. They claim 12 ounces, and we are at 12.67. Next up, we got the Pure Date. They claim 12 ounces, and we got 12.54. Next up, we got the Terrasol. They claim 16 ounces. We got 16.31. Next up, we got the Date Lady. They claim 16 ounces. 16.44. Next up, we got the Worldwide Botanicals. They claim 16 ounces. We got 16.98. Next up, we got the Cardigo Dates. They claim 16 ounces. We got 16.52. Next up, we got Today's Date. They claim 12 ounces. And we got 13.01. Next up, we got the Just Date. They claim 12 ounces. 12.54. Next up, we got Anthony's. They claim 16 ounces, 17.55. Next up, we got Now. They claim 16 ounces, 16.74. Next up is Let's Date. They claim 12 ounces, 12.65. Next up we got Chatfields, claims 8 ounces, and we have 8.38. So based on the scale test, none of these companies ripped us off. They all gave us what was stated on the package, plus a little bit more. The little bit more was probably my little sign that really doesn't weigh a lot, plus the packaging. Some of this packaging is more heavy duty than others. I would say the Worldwide Botanicals uses the best packaging. It seems to be a Mylar based packaging, which means it'll protect your product better than all the other packaging. Oh, maybe the Anthony's also uses a kind of Mylar packaging. And I think pretty much all these companies also have a tear, and then you could actually use a zipper seal to seal it back if you don't use it all at once. So definitely, I do like that a lot. So the next part I'm gonna do is the sift test, right? I could use a super fine sieve, but I don't really want to do that because it's like hard to say, okay, this one is a finer powder than this one that is more coarse, and I'm not even going to go there because I'm going to taste test and see how they taste. But what I do want to do is we're going to go ahead and sift out every one of these date sugars in a standard sieve, not super fine sieve, and as long as the date sugar is of a certain particle size, it'll go through, meaning that I believe all these date sugars should pass. That being said, if the sieve catches particulate, that means it was not ground up fine enough. And to me, that would be kind of a red flag. Maybe some date pits or other contaminants that made it into the date sugar, which in my opinion would not be cool. In addition, when I do this test, I'm going to dump out the contents of the entire package, put it through a sieve, and we're going to see if I can just shake down the sieve to see if it all goes through or if it is packed improperly or stored improperly, if it collected moisture, and then if it clumps up. So, you know, I want my date sugar not to be clumped up. Clumping up is a sign of improper handling and or improper storage and or improper manufacturing because the product is too moist. So I'm all set up to do the sieve test. We got a big container here. We got a nice sieve. We're just basically going to pour every bag through the sieve to see if we catch anything. And if there's any big chunks or anything, I'm going to have to tamp them down. Of course, I don't recommend breathing in fine dust of anything, and there's going to be some dust flying in this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and wear a mask so that I don't breathe in date sugar dust into my lungs. All right, so first one here, we're going to go ahead and open up the Royal Palm, and let's sift it out. All right, after sieving this out, you guys can see what is left in the sieve. Not much. There looks to be like two pieces of one piece of white plastic in there, which is really weird. And then there's a few smaller pieces that just like, even if I crush up, won't go through the sieve. They're kind of like hard rocks. All right, next up, I get to pour this back in, and we're gonna go ahead and do the next one. All right, next up, we're gonna go ahead and sieve out the Yupik brand. All right, Yupik brand successful, nothing in the sieve. All right, next up, Heaven and Earth brand. All right, that was successful, nothing left in the sieve. All right, next up, Pure Date. All right, that was success. It all went through the sieve, and this powder seems to be a little bit darker than the others. All right, next up, we got Terrasol. All right, it all went through the sieve. All right, next up, Date Lady. All right, I want to stop right there. Actually, by far, the Date Lady has the most nugs, like nuggets, like big pieces that I have to press down. I would say until now, it was all an acceptable rate. But yeah, this one has the most for sure. All right, so it seemed to all go through the screen, but there's like some little particles that are hanging that are left. This is a little bit curious to me. I'm not exactly sure what there are. There's like maybe a half dozen of them. To me, it looks like it could, I don't want to guess what it is. There's just some particulate. It looks like, to me, like when I've seen things like this in the past, it could be some kind of insect like webbing / parts. That's my personal opinion. Definitely not an expert. But none of the other date powders have this kind of stuff because it's kind of hanging on like it's like a web. So I don't know. That seems a little bit odd to me personally. So we're just going to denote that. But otherwise it went through the sieve. All right, next up we got Worldwide Botanicals. All right, Worldwide Botanicals, quite interesting. we seem to have like a really fine texture, and then at the last part of the sieve there's like bigger chunks. I can only surmise that these may be some of the date pits that are ground down to a smaller particle size. There's probably at least maybe more than a dozen like left in the sieve, and if you guys look really close, there's a few things that are also like that appear to be white, so I'm not sure if those are white plastic or some other material. So there's two little small white pieces and a whole bunch of like I would say they are like at least a dozen different date pits that are still in the sieve, and then even on top of the sifted material there's a bunch more like I would say date larger coarse pieces instead of the fine stuff. I believe they may be harder date pits. I guess I could go ahead and put them on my mouth and see if I could chew them up here. I mean, it seems that I could chew them up. So it may be like crystallized date sugar that are just bigger crystals. Not exactly sure, but definitely there's like 2 bits of something that didn't appear, in my opinion, to be date sugar. All right, next up we got Cardigo Dates. Family date farm, over 200 years. I do like that. Let's go ahead and sift out the date sugar. Wow, this is probably the smoothest date sugar that went through. Super simple and super easy. Really nice fine texture. Nothing left in the sieve. All right, next up, today's date with the worst packaging in my opinion. Although it is kind of a Mylar bag. And let's see, let's sieve this out. All right, definitely there's a few pieces at the end, like 3 small pieces that didn't go through the sieve. It may be just either some of the sugar crystals or maybe even the date pits. Pieces seem really hard to me. All right, next up, Just Date. All right, on this brand also there seems to be a fair amount of nuggets in there too that are harder to press down. All right, guys, so I gotta tell you guys on the Just Date, it's gonna fail my sieve test, the first company to fail the sieve test. These nuggets are really hard. Like, they're kind of like rocks. Even if I push on it as the same force as I am with the other brands, all these nuggets are not turning back into powder, meaning they must have got like kind of wet and then all the date sugar stuck together or clumped together. If I look in the sieve otherwise, besides having all these big clumps that are nice and hard, it looks like there's no other, there's maybe one piece of contamination. It's something like some little black piece in here. I don't know if this is a rock or a stone or a pit or what. If you guys can see that in my hand. Anyways, yeah, definitely not a fan of Just Date. Didn't go through the sieve, failed the test, and there's another stone or something black in there. There's 2 little things that are black. They're not big enough to go through the sieve. All right, next up, let's go ahead and check out Anthony's non-organic. All right, this went through without a hitch. All right, next up we got the Now brand. All right, there's about 7 little pieces from the Now brand that did not go through the sieve. Like 2 of them are dark brown, and then the other ones are light. So I'm gonna see if I could eat one of these. Yeah, for me it's hard to tell what that is exactly. So I'm just going to denote that there's 4 little pieces. I don't know what they are. All right, next up, let's date. All right, all that went through the sieve without an issue. All right, last but not least, Chatfields. All right, Chatfields seem to me to be pretty much similar to the Royal Date. They may be using the same supplier. This also had a few bits of pieces that are hard that just did not get compressed up. And it looks like that there's like one little white piece of like paper-like stuff. Not exactly sure what that is. That could be like the inside of a date. Like, they kind of get whitish sometimes. I'm not exactly sure. That never got ground up. But there definitely is like 11 pieces of something or other that did not go through the sieve that are a little bit larger. All right, so let's go ahead and review the sieve test. Basically, I will say the top winners in the sieve test: Yupik, Heaven and Earth, Pure Date, Terrasol, Cardigo Dates, Anthony's, and Let's Date. The biggest loser was Just Dates, who had date nuggets that actually would not even go through even after I tried to press them in. Other ones that I didn't particularly care for too much were Chatfield's Royal Palm with some unidentified unidentified pieces. They probably had like the most pieces of them all. The date lady also surprisingly may have had potentially bug parts. I'm not exactly sure. And 6 small things that didn't go through the sieve as well. It definitely had some particulate in there that was not seen in any other product. All right. So let me go ahead and get this cleaned up since we got date powder dust everywhere. Thank God I wore a mask. Normally if I'm working with date powder, I don't just like take it all out and then sift it, and then you can see the dust goes everywhere. I usually don't wear a mask. I usually just carefully put it in. Usually I'm blending the date powder up. I don't usually worry about breathing in small particulate because I'm not stirring it up literally. All right, so other comments I want to share before we go on was that was really dusty. So I'm glad you guys don't have to go through that. But another thing I noticed is that when I would go back to seal some of these bags, some of the zipper seals didn't like work well, which is really not a good thing with date sugar or any kind of sugar. If it's not fully sealed, then you knock it over, it could like everything could leak out. Also ants or other bugs or insects can get in there. So what I would say generally is that the higher quality the packaging, the better it's sealed. So for example, the Worldwide Botanicals uses, a nice Mylar bag that's oversized, so part of the bag is empty. So I find that generally these seals worked a lot better if it had like a Mylar bag and was thicker, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that if the bag was larger, then usually the zipper seal had a larger channel inside there, which means it's less prone to getting the, date sugar dust inside, which then would prevent it from working. The cheaper the packing material, the more and smaller it is, the more difficult it was to seal. So I had a big problem sealing this. Actually, you could see it just coming out because I tried my best to seal it, but like this packaging was really poor. I wasn't able to successfully seal it. Of course, this is also the cheapest product, which potentially had some contamination in the testing. Definitely probably wouldn't recommend that. Other ones that stood out, I don't know, like I really don't like these packages that are small, that are almost up to the top. The smaller packages had a smaller zipper that seemed to get more stuff stuck in there, which then made it harder to seal. I generally would like the larger packages that are taller. Those seals generally work pretty good. And let's see if this one was, yeah, this one's pretty good sealed. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I also take into consideration because I don't generally decant this into another jar. I just use this in the package it comes, seal up the package, put it on the shelf until I need to use it the next time. All right, so I think the final test we're going to do is we're going to basically put every one of these date powders in a little bowl, and then we're going to line them all up so that you guys can see the color of the date powders compared. And then number 2, I'm going to go ahead and then talk about the nutrition in each of the date powders, antioxidant content based on the cultivar, as well as potentially the color, as well as the drying process. And then, of course, I'll be taste testing every one of these single date powders and share with you guys my personal opinions on the taste. Like if it's like really nice and fine, if I feel any kind of chunks in there, if it's sweet or not sweet, if I taste kind of like, some flavors of dates, if it tastes caramelly or not. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get all these set up into the little bowls. All right, so as you guys can see, I basically poured out some of the date sugar in each of the little bowls, and each of the bowls is labeled with the respective brand that they are. I have them actually in order of color, from lightest color on this side to the best of my ability, and then it gets darker over this side, and I didn't have room for this darkest one, which is the Now brand. So, here's the thing. When I poured them all out and when I sieved them, it was obvious to me that some date sugars were more fine than others. We'll discuss this. Some of them had more particulate in there. And of course, some of them are darker than the others. So like, are the darker ones better, John? I don't know. Here's what I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you guys in a published study, the Now brand actually had maybe 2 to 3 times lower antioxidant content or polyphenols than, say, some other brands that were tested at that time. Unfortunately, I don't own a lab to test all these to see which one has the most nutrition. What I would say is the published studies show that generally the more the date is heated up to a hotter temperature, the less of the beneficial properties in that date would exist. So, to me, this seems like it's more caramelly, like it's been basically dried at a hotter temperature, which then would mean it would be easier to grind up because they've removed more water out of it. I don't really know. Maybe I'll be able to taste this when I start taste testing them. That being said, the majority of these powders are made from Deglet Nor dates, and there's 2 other companies that use 2 different varieties. And the nutrients in the date powder would depend on the variety of the date, number one, the growing conditions of the date, and also how the date was processed before it became a powder. Interestingly enough, the other darkest powder is actually the pure date, which does show that they sun dry their dates. So maybe they're sun dried in the temperature in like a greenhouse and they get a little bit too hot. They're definitely a little bit darker. So I guess the next test is I'm going to go ahead and taste test every single one. I'll call it out. I'll start at the lightest and I will go to the darkest. So the lightest date powder was the Cardigo Dates. The Cardigo Dates, they use the Deglet Nor dates, and it's interesting how they get Deglet Nors that are brown into a nice, like almost white color. I'm not exactly sure how they do that. I know generally the smaller the particle size, the less you'll see the original color, but this looks pretty white to me. So I mean, if color is an important factor, you want to go with the Cardigo. To me, that's a very fine powder. It's actually very sweet. I mean, that's like, to me, if I had to rate it 0 to 10, I mean, that is a seriously good date sugar. Tastes sweet, like almost dissolves in my mouth. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good one. I'm gonna rate that a solid 9. Like, I mean, it's the first one I tested, so I don't know. We'll say 9 for sure, because that's definitely really good. All right, next up we got the Anthony's, and the Anthony's are also using the Deglet Nor. They look to be a very fine consistency. And here's the thing: it wouldn't surprise me if some of these suppliers are supplying multiple companies. So, like for example, the Cardigo is a grower, and they could be providing Anthony's their date sugar. So this could be the exact same thing, and that's why I tried to arrange them by color, because if they're generally the same color and the same texture, that potentially means they're the same dates. So I don't know. Let's go ahead and taste the Anthony's. I mean, that's a really good date powder too. Super fine. I'm going to say there is some kind of aftertaste. Like the Cardigo was way sweet. This was sweet, not quite as sweet. A little bit of aftertaste. I mean, I'm going to rate that an 8. All right, next up we got the Royal Palm California Deglet Nors. Go ahead and taste this. I mean, that's also a very good date powder. I mean, it's hard to differentiate between them. I still think the Cardigo is a little bit better, but I'm going to call this a solid 8 as well. All right, next up we got the Heaven and Earth brand, and actually this brand uses the Sakari dates, so that's different than all the other brands. So let's go ahead and try this. Definitely not quite as fine. But man, this stuff tastes good too. I mean, it's really hard to say, because at this point it's like personal preference. I mean, these are all sweet and just like really good up to this point. I mean, I'm gonna say that's an 8. All right, next up we got the Chatfields from California, so I'm gonna assume they're Deglet Nor. Let's go ahead and try this date sugar. A little bit more grit. But man, I mean, this stuff is so good, guys. Like, if you've been adding, like, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to, like, sprinkle white sugar on top of my Cheerios. But, man, if I was a kid or you got kids and you still use white sugar to add and sprinkle on top of stuff to make it sweeter, get some of this date sugar, man. This stuff, it is so delicious. I mean, hard to rate these guys. I mean, this is pretty much just as sweet as the others. I'm going to say that's also an 8. All right, next up, the Let's Date brand. They're also from the USA, they claim. So I'm going to also guess this is probably Deglet Noors. A lot of these are very similar. I really can't say much. I mean, that's a solid date sugar. I mean, another 8. Next up, the Yupik brand out of Canada. Sold in the US on Amazon. From Tunisia. The date variety not specified. Definitely a nice fine texture. Wow. So what I'll say is actually that one doesn't seem to be as sweet, but it does have more of a caramel flavor, if that makes sense. I mean, I kind of liked it. I'll rate it probably a 7. Next up, we got the Just Date. This is from Tunisia, and this is the Kentichi variety of date. Oh, wow. Definitely not quite as sweet as the other ones, but it does have a complex flavor, like definitely tastes more caramel. Gives you a nice little aftertaste at the end. Like, I don't know, man. It's so hard to say which one of these are good because they're all good, but they're a little bit unique and different. I mean, if you want a caramel flavor, I'd say go with the Just Date, but then again, this is the same brand that had the date stones that I personally did not appreciate. But the flavor was good. I think I'll rate the flavor a 7. All right, next up, the Date Lady. They don't claim the variety or even where it is grown. This one looks like there's a little bit more texture to it. Let's go ahead and try it. Definitely a tad bit more coarse. I mean, I taste the sweetness, but it doesn't like hit me with a punch like literally the first one did. I mean, that one was just off the hook. I mean, I'd say that's like a 6. Next up, we're going to sample the Today's Date. This one claims organic, but not certified. Have the closest expiration date, and we don't know where it's grown or the variety of the date. Wow. To me, that one's like a lot of fiber. Not very sweet at all. Actually, I'm going to rate that a 5. Next up, we got this guy right here, which is the Worldwide Botanicals California Deglet Noors. I like the packaging on this, using high quality packaging. That being said, this looks a little bit more coarse. Let's go ahead and try it. Definitely more gritty. Like as I'm chewing it, I like my teeth make the noise of the grit. That didn't happen on the fine ones. I mean, the funny thing about this one is that it kind of tastes like dates. So the flavor's there, but it's just not punching me in the face with the sweetness. I'm going to also rate this a 5. Next up, we got the Terrasol. This is the Deglet Noors, and it could be from Algeria, Tunisia, or the USA. They don't really say. It looks to be fairly fine texture, a little bit darker. That's a solid date powder, guys. It's fine, so I'm not tasting like a lot of the chunks like the last one. And it's really sweet. A little bit of caramel flavor. I'm going to rate that like an 8. All right, next up we got from Tunisia, the Pure Date. They don't specify the cultivar of date. However, it is sun-dried. Women are paid a fair wage. It is one of the darkest ones, actually. So let's go ahead and try it. Yeah, definitely. It's not as sweet as some of the other ones down there. That's not super coarse grime, but doesn't make noise in my mouth when I chew it. Definitely more of a caramel flavor. I'm not sure if that's because it's heated too hot or the variety of date or, you know, something unique to the processing. I mean, it was a decent flavor. I'm going to give that a solid 7. All right, last up, we got the Now brand, which is the darkest of them all. So, and you want the darkest date sugar to add to recipes, then the Now is it. That being said, published studies showed it was lower in antioxidants. We don't know where it's from. We don't know the cultivar of the date. It is organic, but it is labeled raw. So if you want to keep your raw label, buy the Now brand. Oh my gosh. Guys. Very caramel flavor, like almost like very low sweetness. I like the Now brand for their supplements, but on their date sugar, I'm gonna have to give them a 3. All right, just for fun, I gotta go back to Cardigo that had the lightest color, and I rated it the highest. After tasting all these, I want to go back to the first one to see if this really just gives me that punch again. I mean, that is a super fine and super delicious date sugar. I about have to say, like, the Cardigo is probably the best tasting one here. I generally liked it more the lighter the color. I believe lightness tends to be like the finer it's ground. So the finer it's ground, the more surface area there is, the more it hits your taste buds, and the more it makes your taste buds light up and say, wow, this is so good. All right, so anyways, on the taste test, Cardigo won, but we did several other tests. So I'm gonna go ahead and compile the data, and I'm gonna share with you guys my final results. All right, so now's the time we're gonna go ahead and declare the winner of this date sugar taste off and test comparison that I've done. I've taken many factors into consideration, including what's on the packaging, how much does the company disclose about their product, like where it is from, the cultivar they're using. Also, I've taken into consideration the expiration date. If it was on the package, some companies had no expiration date, which really got it marked down a lot because I don't like getting products without an expiration date. I don't know how long it's been sitting in that Amazon warehouse. I've also taken into consideration the taste test, which was one of many considerations. Of course, I've also taken into consideration the Sieve test. If there's particulate in the Sieve test, man, I pretty much kicked it out because, man, like if they can't get that right, what else can't they get right? I've also taken into consideration if it's organic or not. I have a strong preference towards organic, especially if there's non-organic options and the organic ones are just as good or better. The non-organic ones get kicked out. I also have taken into consideration the packaging. So for example, on the nutrition facts, if they made claims that are really far out of bounds, they got kicked out because I'm like, hey man, if I can't trust them to pay for a legitimate nutrition facts label to have proper information, like having the sugar or fiber content, I don't know if I could trust that brand. Of course, I also have taken into consideration, marketing of the companies as well as information I've learned from the company's website as well. And of course, a very important consideration for me was the cost. So knowing all this, who is the winner? So you know what, guys? Here's the winner. I'm about to say Cardigo is the winner. They had the finest date powder. They had a legitimate amounts on their nutrition facts. You know where exactly this product is coming from, which is from Tunisia using Deglet Nord dates. They were definitely on the more expensive side at 81 cents per ounce, but it was ground really fine. They also had, claimed legitimate in range for the fiber and sugar content, which I liked a lot. Also, they did have the expiration date on the package that is also very important to me, which is about a year out from the time I bought it. So if you want the best, in my opinion, Cardigo wins first place. All right, second place winner actually coming in, and it costs more money than the Cardigo, was the Let's Date. This is at 92 cents per ounce. The Cardigo was at 81 cents per ounce, but this is number 2 because it basically passed the Sieve test. It does have a best buy date, which is actually a year and a half from today. It's organic. All the labeling information was fairly accurate. So that's definitely the second runner-up. Both these are on the expensive side. That being said, the third runner-up is a brand that I have actually purchased before, and I was surprised on how well it did. It's the Yupik brand. This is definitely more of a generic packaging, but they have done their job to source it well. And of course, this one has a best buy date of March 2026, which is like a year and 8 months from the time this video is being filmed. It also is the largest pack size, and more importantly, this was the least expensive organic option. So if you're like me and you're frugal, but you want the very best, right? You don't want to spend a lot of money. The Yupik brand is it. This comes in at 57 cents per ounce, which is, the second cheapest after the Royal Palm, who got kicked out for not being organic and having particulate, maybe even potentially plastic when I did the Sieve test. So yes, those are the top 3. So definitely top best Cardigo dates, right? Their family has been growing dates for over 200 years, and they definitely got the processing right. This stuff tasted like no other. So if you just want the best flavor, the best taste, don't mind spending a little bit more, get the Cardigo. Me personally, I would skip number 2, Let's Date, because the price is actually more than Cardigo. I would actually jump to the Yupik just because, you know, it was pretty much almost similar to Let's Date in my comparison. And of course, the cost was the least expensive. Plus, you get the most. And it also, of course, passed the Sieve test, something that I weighed on heavily. If it didn't pass the Sieve test, out. Now, the last honorable mention I want to give that's not in the top 3, but I want to give it honorable mention, is the Pure Date company. This fared fairly well. I wish they would disclose the cultivar of the date they use. That being said, some of the other things I didn't like about it is that there's no expiration date on the package. That is really concerning to me. Hopefully they get that corrected. I don't know if I got a batch that didn't have it, because it seems to me that they should be putting it on there. That being said, I do like that they use recycled packaging. And of course, on the back of the package, it says they use upcycled Tunisian dates. They use natural energy, meaning it's sun-dried. And so that way the temperature is probably kept lower. Although it didn't, you know, fare super well in my taste test. They use local employees and expertise, employ women, pay them a fair wage. And so, you know, if you're into like social justice issues, you know, unless this company's doing a marketing sham on you, it seems like this is a good company to go with to, you know, yeah, spend some more money. It's 75 cents per ounce, but it was a solid product with a good, seems to me that they have a good social justice cause to it. Now, the date sugar that you should absolutely not buy is the Now brand. I was really surprised by this. I was expecting the Now brand to be fairly good, but I was just really disappointed. It was just really not sweet. It was too coarse. I mean, I know they've been selling date sugar for a long time, longer than some of these other companies. Maybe they just got stuck in using their supplier that's doing some old-fashioned processing methods and not grinding it as much and maybe heating it too much. I don't really know. Also, published studies show lower, you know, health beneficial properties in that date sugar. And of course, all the other ones fell in between somewheres. But yeah, these 3 are definitely the winners for sure. If you guys want to get any of these date powders, once again, links down to my Amazon shop. So you guys can link to all these date powders. I'll have a special category where I have the winning date powders, the Cardigo, Let's Date, and the Yupik, as well as the Pure Date. And of course, you know, I've had a lot of fun sharing this video with you guys. And if you guys haven't yet tried date sugar, I would encourage you guys to buy some, right? And try it, because you will be surprised on, I mean, especially the Cardigo, man. That thing tasted so amazing. Like, you just got to start using it in your blended soups and smoothies. I add some to dressings. When I'm making them, it acts as a nice thickener. When I'm blending up dressings, I also add it to soups, and even my heat processed foods, I'll add a little bit of date sugar just to give it a little extra kick with all the other herbs and spices that I add in. So if this video has helped you out, hey, please be sure to use those links down below to Amazon so you guys can get these date products conveniently and easily, because unfortunately, they're not easily available at most supermarkets or even health food stores. More importantly, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. That'll encourage the YouTube algorithm to push this out to more people so that people can find the best date sugar and use it instead of using processed sugars, which I'm not a fan of, and encourage you guys to eliminate out of your diet. More importantly, share this with other people that are on a whole food plant-based diet or want to learn more about date sugar so that they could improve their diet and improve their health by getting natural dates just ground up into a powder. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new and upcoming episodes I'll be coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know what new products I'll be comparing or testing, what new knowledge bombs I'll be dropping on you, or what travels I'll be sharing with you guys so you guys could eat more healthy, whole plant foods, including lots of fruits and vegetables, which are some of the healthiest foods on the planet. And of course, the dates are just a dried fruit after all. Although sometimes you could find them fresh when they're actually fresh fruits when they're barely dried. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And more importantly, be sure to check my past episodes. The past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to you guys all about eating more fresh fruits and vegetables to improve your diet and your health. I'll put a couple links down below to date farms that I've made videos at in the past if you guys want to learn more about how dates are grown. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRod.com. We'll We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.